Sorry. I'm just getting over not having laryngitis anymore, so if my voice sounds like a teensy bit fucked up, that's why. I also just ran 2 miles in like 44-ish degree temperatures, and my hips now feel like they're going to just like detach from my legs at any point, so I just feel like a mess right now. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to be doing a video that I didn't necessarily anticipate making. I actually have 2 videos that I'm actively working on right now. One is a review and analysis of season 1 of How I Met Your Father, which has been, you know, just a wonderful treat and not at all painful and excruciating to make. So look out for that on my channel in the next couple weeks. And I'm also working on a video that has been in the works since, about the dawn of time. It's a special conspiracy theory review of season 2 of Only Murders in the Building, and that hopefully should come out at some point whenever I get the wherewithal to actually just sit down and do it. I was not planning on sitting down and working on this particular video today, but yesterday I went with my boyfriend to go see Ant-Man and the Wasp, and after watching that movie and contemplating on it in the hours that followed, I decided that I needed to talk about it, just, you know, sit down, you and me, and just have a conversation about this movie. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Spoiler alert! Spoiler! Spoiler! If you have not seen Quantum Leap, oh my god. If you have not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, or if you have not seen, honestly, if you just are not well-versed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I'll probably be talking about a lot of the different films and television shows in this series. So just a general spoiler alert for that. Spoiler! Spoiler! And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so just to give a little bit of context as to where I'm coming from in my experience with the MCU, I would say I've been a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe probably since a couple months before Endgame came out. It was always one of those franchises that I really wanted to get into at some point and fully intended to watch the movies, but it just felt very daunting at the time to just delve into this universe that required you to watch 20-something movies in order to understand what the hell was going on. Once my boyfriend's coworker got us tickets to go see Avengers Endgame in theaters the night that it was released, it kind of gave us a reason to just sit down and just watch these movies, and that's what we did in the weekends leading up to Endgame, and we really enjoyed the experience. It was a lot of fun, and I considered myself after that, especially after seeing Endgame, to be a fan of the MCU. Don't really know much about the comic books. There are some times where I'll go and like read on Wikipedia what the actual backstory of some of these characters are. I really just like the MCU films. I think Marvel has really honed a very specific formula and specific feel to a lot of their movies that keep people continuing to come back and approach these films with such positivity. They have a good balance of character growth and development, really great casting choices, decent acting, fun stories in this big universe that they've created, a good balance of believability and wit and humor that make the films not feel too bogged down with intensity. There are films in the MCU that kind of skew a little more intense and skew a little bit more juvenile and fun and lighthearted, and there's a decent amount of variety of types of circumstances that you see in the MCU, but they all kind of follow that similar formula, and it allows it to feel consistent, but while still also feeling like it's not the same shit over and over again, to a certain point, but we'll get there in a minute. After Endgame, I tried my best to follow up with a lot of the content that was being released with Disney and the MCU, and I liked the television shows quite a bit. I really liked Hawkeye. I didn't really think I was going to like Hawkeye because sometimes I forget that he exists. I really liked Loki. WandaVision was pretty good. Didn't really like Falcon and the Winter Soldier that much. I think it was trying to be a little bit more charismatic than it actually was, but I tried my best to keep up with the content. It got to a point where the Marvel Cinematic Universe was just releasing an ungodly amount of information and content at you, and they'd have these like timelines at Comic-Con and other big conventions where they'd have like 10-year plans of what the different releases were going to be, and I don't know why, but that just kind of overwhelmed me a little bit and gave me a little bit of like anxiety. Felt like I was committing to something that I wasn't necessarily ready to do. I felt like sometimes I would just blink or just have a busy week or two and then log into Disney Plus and there'd be like 7 shows that I had no idea existed, but that I now have to watch if I want to be able to watch any of the other movies because I need to understand what the hell is going on. I still find it especially impressive that Marvel manages to create this consistent timeline of things happening in the same universe without really a big issue with continuity, and is able to kind of have this interwoven story amongst all of these films, and is able to do that very successfully, and that franchise is owned by Disney that also happens to own a franchise that can't do 3 films, you know, back to back to back that make sense or that have any cohesion amongst themselves. When I saw that Ant-Man was going to have his own third standalone film and that it was going to be based in the quantum realm, I was very excited about this. I always loved Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I mean, everyone loves Paul Rudd, and I think he's really great in the role. I liked his 2 Ant-Man films. I know Ant-Man and the Wasp is not really that popular with a lot of people, but I thought it was okay, and I really liked him in Endgame. I also really wanted to see this movie because one of the particular characters that was featured in the trailers for Quantumania was a prominent villain at the end of the Loki miniseries. When Sylvie and Loki go to the end of time and they encounter Jonathan Majors' character, He Who Remains, I thought that was like a phenomenal cliffhanger jumping off point for a lot of different stories for the MCU to explore. And the fact that one of his little variants was going to be in the Quantumania movie really got me excited to see this film. After watching Quantumania, I have come to the conclusion that it's not very good. It's a little bit of a mess. I was actually expecting a lot more from this movie. I don't really know why. I just felt like I got a good feeling about it when I saw the trailer. When we went to dinner before we went to the theater to see Quantumania, my boyfriend and I were talking about what we think the show was going to be out of a scale from 1 to 10. And he was like, yeah, I think it'll probably be an 8 out of 10. And I was like, yeah, 7.5, 8 out of 10 sounds about right. And it was not. It was really not that great. I feel like it was less of a movie and more of one of those story video games where you're just kind of like meeting this person, talking to them, finding out an objective, then going to this location and clearing the objective, and then talking to this person who will give you exposition on where to go next. There really wasn't anything other than just the characters being told where to go and then accomplishing certain things in order to meet this end goal. There was no character development. None of the characters had any arcs or any like growth whatsoever to them. They just kind of like said things, and they're basically the same exact people doing the same exact things from when we started in the movie. There's really nothing to it that even makes it feel like an Ant-Man movie other than the fact that it exists in the quantum realm. It's a movie named Ant-Man and Wasp. Their involvement in this movie at times felt very incidental. The biggest standout of this film was the villain Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors. He was fantastic in this movie, but beyond that, it was not very good. I did not feel any investment into anything that was going on. I thought the pacing was really rough. There was a lot of things that just kind of got glossed over in the first 15 minutes, and then bam, we're in the quantum realm. We're going to get into it a little bit more in a minute here, but just as a general spoiler-free impression of this film, if this is how Phase 5 is going to start, I am not optimistic. To give a quick summary of the events of this film, because if you're like me, you might not remember what the hell you just watched even like a day after seeing it, so allow me to refresh you right now. Basically, the story follows Scott Lang, or as my boyfriend called him yesterday, Steve Thwang, around San Francisco in the events after Avengers Endgame. Scott is recognized as a hero, as an Avenger. He's getting high fives from random kids. He's getting free coffee from coffee shops, and he's just living his life. He's written books. He and Hope are having this like wonderful life together, but we find out that Scott's daughter Cassie, who is now about 16 or 17 years old, has been starting to protest for the rights of people who lost their lives and lost their homes and rights and everything during the blip, got arrested, and we find out that Cassie has been allowed to use Ant-Man technology to do things like shrink a cop car during the protest, which is like, you know, great parenting choices here. And we find out that Cassie has also been working with Grandpa Hank and Hope on creating technology that would allow them to access data or information from the quantum realm and then have it like radio signaled back up to them. And Janet, who apparently didn't know this was happening until now, decides that this is a bad idea, and without giving further explanation, immediately demands that they shut it off. And of course, right as soon as they do, they all get sucked into the quantum realm. And basically the rest of the film centers around these characters trying to reunite with each other and get out of the quantum realm and get back to their universe, while also attempting to stop Kang the Conqueror from rebuilding his multiverse ship that can allow him to travel across timelines and destroy them and everybody in it. Now, I have to first mention, because I was very surprised by the trajectory of events that occurred in this movie, not because it was like intentionally and like creatively crafty that made me think that some other things were going to happen when they didn't, but it was more because the trailers just kind of flat out lied to me a little bit. I remember seeing trailers for this movie, and I remember actually sharing them with my boyfriend when we were talking about wanting to go see this movie, that made it seem like the whole conflict of this film was going to be Scott wanting to have more time with his daughter because he was in the quantum realm for 5 years and he missed crucial years of his life with Cassie, and that maybe he was going to make a deal with Kang the Conqueror to get more time back with her in order to do something that would benefit Kang, but of course he gets betrayed, and that was going to be the whole conflict of this film. But that's not what ended up happening. There were certain clips, and I'll try to insert it at some point in this video where it made it seem like that was the case, but that was not at all a storyline in this movie.
I don't care who this guy is. I just lost so much. He can give us a second chance.
Hi, it's Editing Megan. While I was editing this video, I wanted to just clarify. So in the trailer, they make it seem like Scott is trying to make this deal with King the Conqueror to get more time with his daughter. And it like I said, it insinuates maybe that he missed out on certain years of her life, and that's going to be the central conflict of the movie. And then he's going to want to get that time back by making some sort of deal with him. But then he's, you know, betrayed and everything like that. In the movie, Scott ends up having to get stuff for King the Conqueror to power his like magical carriage that he uses to travel across multiverses, but he doesn't do it because he's like enticed with this offer to have more time with Cassie. It's because they're in prison because they're idiots and they got captured like very early on in the movie. Basically, Kang was like, I will let your daughter go if you like do what I need you to do. And it's weird to me that clearly the people in charge of making the trailer, they knew that this could have been a possibility, that this could have been a direction, because they very clearly made it look like that was what the story was going to be in the trailer, but they just didn't do it. I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense to me. After watching the movie, I kind of wish that's what they did, because there really wasn't any other emotional stakes or conflict in the story. I can understand trailers trying to be deceptive by not really revealing what the actual conflict is going to be, but they usually don't try to frame it in a way where it's a completely different conflict. They usually just try to hide it a little bit and then just like give you little glimmers of what it might be, but it doesn't straight up lie. The reason why this film is so frustrating is because it felt like it didn't exist for any other reason than just to set up phase 5 of the MCU and to establish future spin-off series and movies that are going to come in the future. We can tell by the 2 end credit scenes that we know that there's going to be a lot of this revisited in Loki season 2. There are a lot of movies and a lot of television shows in the MCU that definitely do a lot of work to lay the groundwork for what's to come and to really establish things, and you don't really know what's going to happen until you see it, and then you're like, oh, that's what that was referring to before. But they still have to be good movies in their own right, because otherwise what the fuck is the point? We're just watching like an informational video. It's not entertaining, it's not fun, it's not engaging. It's just like, here is the history of the quantum realm and 2 people punching each other, and sometimes the one person gets really, really small and other times he gets really, really big. As far as the characters go in this film, it's pretty rough. There's really nothing to the characters in this movie, and it's really a shame, like I said, because Paul Rudd's performance in Endgame and what that did for his character and the significance that he played in that movie is just leaps and bounds better and more impactful than what we see in this film. There's real emotional grounding and stakes in that film for him. You understand his motivations, you see a growth, you see an arc, you see why he's doing these things. In Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, he's just kind of like chilling. There's no like personal conflicts between any of the other characters. I thought there was going to be an arc about him and his daughter not getting along or not really understanding each other. I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing I would think that they could do, but they just didn't do that. He's literally walking down the street talking about how life is so weird in the beginning of the film, and then at the end of the film he's doing the exact goddamn thing. And I know that not every film has to have this like massive, amazing character arc for every single character, but it's kind of something we've come to expect with the MCU. It's kind of the reason that we like these movies and that they're so successful, is because we can relate to the characters and see them grow and watch them like react to things that are happening in their lives and grow and develop as a result. I mean, look at pretty much any other Marvel movie and you'll see that shit to a certain extent. Spider-Man 2 and 3, Peter Parker is dealing with the ramifications of the fact that his mentor and father figure Tony Stark died, and then in the 3rd film trying to figure out what it means to be publicly known as a superhero and trying to protect his loved ones from the massive amounts of shit that they're going to get from the public as a result. Captain America 2 and 3, Captain America is trying to understand the fact that life is not always so black and white, and the government that basically created him and instructed him to serve them is now trying to kill him. Iron Man 3, which no one likes Iron Man 3, but even in that movie, Tony Stark is trying to understand the having PTSD from shoving a fucking missile into a black hole in space. Paul Rudd is just kind of walking down the street, drinking coffee and eating ice cream. He just feels like an empty void that has to accomplish tasks so that we can establish other things. And his daughter, oh my god, I understand understand that we needed to have a way to get the characters into the quantum realm and that we needed to have Cassie be involved in that. But there's literally nothing at all in this film that establishes, number one, why a 16-year-old should have technology that allows her to shrink and like do reckless shit with like Ant-Man technology. And two, why she should be working on something that is so advanced that can get particles and information from another realm or universe and transmit them back up to us. She's 16. What the fuck? There's no conversation. It's like, how does she know how to do that? I didn't know how to do that when I was 16. There's not even a conversation being like, Cassie, you're so smart. I know that you're like so interested in technology and stuff and you want to help people. Like, but you know, you gotta focus on school. You gotta get your priorities straight. There's nothing like that. They don't even establish like most baseline backstory for this bitch to explain how she can just do that. She just can't. The writers just need her to be able to get them into the quantum realm. So let's just have Cassie do it. Let's just have Cassie be like a 16-year-old super genius or something. It's just purely for the sake of plot convenience. And then she doesn't even like learn any lesson at the end of this film. She wants to do reckless things to help people, and then she just does. And then they eat ice cream cake at the end of the film. As for the other characters, they all bothered me. Hank just is obsessed with ants and it's just creepy and strange. And Michael Douglas looks as old and rickety as ever. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think that she did an okay job with this role, but as a character, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever why she just refuses to tell anybody anything about her experience in the quantum realm until people are literally about to die. I understand it was traumatic and she feels guilty that these things happened because of her, because everyone keeps saying that Janet caused Kang the Conqueror to take over and kill millions of people. Any logical person in these situations wouldn't just be like, sorry, I'm not going to tell you, like, you know, I'm trying to protect you. You don't need to know that. It's like, you're literally stuck in an alternate dimension. You need to start answering some fucking questions, Janet. The fact that this movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp is kind of a joke because Hope was literally just like a background character at this point. She literally had no arc, no growth, no nothing. It's just, there's nothing. Their characters in this movie are vapid, with one notable exception. The biggest standout of this film was the villain, Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors. He was fantastic in this movie. He played such a good balance between pretending to be personable and approachable and understanding and empathetic, but then flips a switch and you see he's just an absolutely terrifying, intense, scary guy. And I love how he played it as somebody that you could see being a variant of the person that we saw at the end of the Loki series. And I thought that he just did an amazing job. He completely stole the movie for me. As far as the other background characters, I mean, there was a lot of like background fodder that really just didn't make a lot of difference one way or the other. It was weird because a lot of the characters were played by like big actors. We had Bill Murray was there for a couple minutes, which was really strange. I don't even remember what the character was, but they insinuated that he and Michelle Pfeiffer's character had sex. So like that's kind of weird. I think he might have died, but I couldn't even tell you what his character's name was because he was only on screen for like 3 minutes. William Jackson Harper, who I love from The Good Place, was in this movie, and he had a shockingly little amount of screen time. I don't even remember what his character's name was, but he could read people's minds. There was just a bunch of other side plots about like these villages and like subsects of the quantum realm that were abused and decimated by Kang the Conqueror, and they were trying to rise up against him to try to defeat him, which, you know, did not go very well, but you know, it's something to do. So in conclusion, do I recommend this movie? I do not. Well, it's hard because with the MCU, it kind of like forces you to watch these movies, even if the movies themselves are not good, if it could potentially relate to another series or another film that you are very interested in, which is exactly one of the reasons why I watched this movie, was because I wanted to know what was going on for season 2 of Loki. And it just feels like it's just constantly looking forward and what's next without actually focusing on making the present product something actually good. Forgot to mention this in other parts of the video too, but in a lot of ways this film kind of reminded me of the prequel trilogy, and I know that sounds very harsh and it's not nearly as bad as the prequel trilogy, but a lot of how it looked, how it just felt like the look and the appearance of everything took priority over the actual storytelling and the writing and the characterization. There are a lot of moments that look almost verbatim out of the prequel trilogy, and it was kind of distracting to me, and just the level of CGI and the amount of things that just didn't look that great kind of prevented me from immersing myself into this world, where even if the writing and the characters and the story wasn't really there, I could just like appreciate how amazing this world looked, and it didn't really even have that. I hope going forward that we can focus more on the fun and engaging stories of the MCU, and I think that's really a reason why a lot of people like Marvel so much. It's because we care about these characters and their journeys and what's going on and how they develop as the events progress. Hope we can continue to have stories like those that we've had in the past and not get bogged down down in the semantics of the multiverse if it's going to be too convoluted to pull off. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Thank you guys who have been subscribing lately. I really truly appreciate it. It's incredibly exciting. If there's any other movies or television shows that you want me to talk about, please let me know down in the comments, whether it's something upcoming or if it's something that's been released for a while and you just want to know my thoughts on it. I'm going to go pay attention to my cat because otherwise she's going to murder me in my sleep. Bye-bye!